Hi there, Spencer Hill here, co-author and cartoonist of Cartoons from the Horse's Mouth. And I absolutely love sketchbooks and origin stories and biographies, and I have a whole collection of them here of cartoonists whom I admire. So one day, when this might well become a hidden classic, somebody will dig this video out and say, isn't it great that Spencer talked about how this came to be and talked a little bit about some of the cartoons inside it? Maybe. So let's go back in time 6 years to about this time in 2014, at a bit of a loose end, and I'm terrible when I'm at a loose end. I had no job at the time and I wanted this to be my job. So I was looking around for projects and I was scratching my head trying to think about what I could do a cartoon series on to sell to a magazine. And I suddenly thought, hey, I'm living with an equine expert. Why don't I pick her brain and see if we can turn it into something? It was something Vicky had said, I think, the night before that led to this cartoon, something about horses always want to be on the other side of the fence, which I think became the cartoon on page 70. So this was the first one, and I thought we could do a load more of these and probably sell them to one of the UK equine magazines, and that was the project. So the project was to do 25 or so cartoons, 25 cartoons to prove that the concept worked, and then pitch them to a magazine. And that's how it began. So within the first week I'd managed to bang out the first sort of dozen or so and started to try and approach magazines with them. And needless to say, cartoon industry is not that great at the moment, and they're laying off cartoonists and stopping series rather than taking on new ones. So whilst I had some lukewarm interest from the leading magazine in the UK at the time, I didn't get a sale, and they weren't really interested in us producing any more for them. So he had this dozen cartoons and a load more ideas, and we thought, well, can't let it go. So I said, by the end of this month, I'm going to make enough cartoons to produce a book. So that's where it began. So we had a dozen cartoons, and you could probably find, I certainly will be able to very, very quickly pick out probably the cartoons which were some of the origin cartoons, or the ones that started this all off. Partly I can tell you because I remember, partly because I know that the drawing style evolved even throughout the book. And the idea was to produce a whole stack more of these. And by the end of that month, we had about 101. And we then decided that what we would try and do is find a publisher. So Vicky made a list of the publishers that she felt were the most desirable and the most likely to take this. And Quiller was at the top of the list. Kenilworth is an imprint of that, and they were interested. So literally by sort of the end of the year, come September time, I think it was, we were talking on the phone to them, and they said, well, the only thing we probably think is maybe it'd be good to sort of bump a few more cartoons up in terms of making the actual the book long enough to be able to publish it. So we conceived and produced these sort of guide cartoons, and there are a number of these throughout the book. And in actual fact, at the time, we thought that these cartoons were Quiller thought these could possibly be a book in their own right, but unfortunately that never came to fruition. And this was already produced, so it's a pretty cool project for a publisher to be taking on, because this was already in the right format and it was already ready to go, and all they had to do was to print it and market it, stick a barcode on the back of it, and you had a saleable product. So yeah, so that is effectively how this came to be. So it's been in publication now for 6 years, like I say, and this cartoon is my favourite, just in case you're interested. I also hate flies, and it was just a really nice cartoon to draw. This anthropomorphic style as well was something that led to a project that followed this one, which was the Yellow Monkeys Classic of Chinese Medicine, which was published a couple of years later by Singing Dragon, using the same style as this, which I love it. I think it's a great way of doing things. It's not for everybody. I do love the ones with snow. They used to say that in the Danger Mouse cartoons, for those of you who remember Danger Mouse, often when they were running out of money or the budget was getting low, they would suddenly introduce a lot of snow, or Danger Mouse would go to a snowy area so they could save on colour. That wasn't the intention here. It was just something to make a laugh. So yeah, so you end up with cartoons which Vicky might talk about the difference between sort of donkeys and horses, or we might talk about what half pass is in terms of practice. We might be talking about the poop in the field, or the way they try and get out of their rugs. And as Vicky would talk, I would brainstorm. So thinking about different breeds, obviously. Vicky features. I don't know what I do. I don't actually put myself in here, but yeah, some of this is one of the early ones. But this idea about taking scientific stuff from Vicky's brain and turning it, or practice or experiences or stories, and turning it into a whole stack of cartoons, and that's what we have here. So I hope you enjoy it. We're going to post this up on the Facebook page, which we've got going for Cartoons from the Horse's Mouth. Never know, it might actually spark some interest in talking about it more, or even maybe doing some more, because there are actually a whole stack of these which were drawn in the intention of doing a sequel, which Quilla was not really very interested in, because if we're going to be honest, sales of this have not really exceeded in 6 years beyond buying a meal maybe somewhere not too expensive. But hey, it's about the love of it, and we love it, and we're proud of it, and we hope that you love it too, and maybe it'll spark some conversation or some feedback. So yeah, thank you very much.